Today on the Athlete's Mindset, I'm joined by former Oregon and Northwestern player Tyler Ganus. Tyler's journey through college baseball wasn't the typical highly recruited path. He started as a walk-on and had to earn every opportunity along the way. That experience forced him to develop a deeper understanding of the mental side of performance, something that ultimately became a huge part of how he approached the game and life. In this episode, we talk about his recruiting journey, what it was like navigating rejection early in his career, and the lessons he learned through his time both at the University of Oregon and Northwestern. Tyler also shares mental tools that helped him stay grounded and perform under pressure, including visualization, breathwork, journaling, and self-talk, and why training your mind can be just as important as training your body. This conversation is about resilience, perspective, and learning how to keep your mind right when the path doesn't unfold the way you expected. Let's get into it. Tyler, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to have you on. I've seen a whole bunch of your content. It's absolutely awesome. Talking about the mental side, self-talk, visualization, just all of it. And it's definitely stuff that I needed when I was younger, because, especially in high school and then getting into, my freshman year of college. But before we get into that, I want to hear a little bit more just about your story. Can you talk about, your recruiting process and how you ended up at the University of Oregon?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up in Los Angeles. I played for Harvard Westlake down there in SoCal. Had a really interesting recruiting journey. So for my first 3 years or so of high school, I was recruited by Oregon State, Harvard, Columbia, some D3s. And it was actually as a two-way player, and it was great. I would talk to a lot of these coaches every couple of weeks, build a really good relationship. And by the time I was a senior, unfortunately, they all passed on me. They said, "We're going with someone else. You're not good enough," etc. Right. And that was tough. That was really tough for me being in a lineup, especially at Harvard Westlake, surrounded by legit talent, right? Everyone's a Division I commit, and I'm there with nothing, right? It was kind of a gut punch. And I decided to go to an Oregon baseball camp my December of my senior year. Took a chance, said, why not? Right. I still got the love for it. Working really hard, trying to get an opportunity. And I ended up going, doing well. They don't have any scholarships left, but they say, "Hey, we like you enough to offer you a preferred walk-on spot. Do you want to take it?" I said, "Yes, let's go." I was quickly humbled though. Came into the Oregon baseball program. It was about a 50-man roster, right on the brink of COVID, and had a terrible fall. I was the worst guy in the program, straight up. And at the end of the fall, the coaches sat me down and said, "Tyler, if it wasn't COVID, you would have been cut. The only thing keeping you here is your competitiveness and your positivity." And obviously that was really tough on me. And one of the biggest things in my career was a mental shift that happened in that moment. I, call my parents, crying, don't know what to do. They're like, "Hey, just go with your gut, right? Go with your heart." And I end up having a really crazy transformation where every single day I wake up at 6 a.m., blast a motivational video in my ear. I get to work in the cages. I do 2 workouts a day, 4,000 plus calories. I went from 171 to 191 from my freshman year, from September to January. And so I say that because I think it's a really good preface for this whole call. That really informed so much of what I do now, so much of my career thus far. And so that's my recruiting journey and kind of my entry point into college ball.
Yeah, when you ended up at Oregon and you had the tough fall, you put in all of this work mentally. What was like the biggest difference or change that you felt, when you came back for the spring and had kind of the few weeks prior to the season starting?
For sure, man. I think, for me, that whole freshman year was kind of a whirlwind. It usually is for most people. And, anyone watching this, you're not alone. If it's a little bit of a whirlwind, you're trying to learn stuff, right? I always tell people best thing you can do freshman year, just learn, be a sponge, soak up information. And for me, I would say over winter break is really when a big, you know, sort of switch happened for me where I just wanted to bet on myself. And so that was the first mental transformation for me was, I'm going to do everything I can to bet on myself and just honestly be my own best friend a little bit, kind of try to coach myself, right? Take ownership of my career, not wait for other people to tell me, "Hey, do this, Tyler, work on this with your swing or work on this with your arm strength." Like I had to take ownership a little bit and say, "Hey, what do I need to do to get better?" Right? The coaches are going to help me out, but I've got to do whatever I can on my own too to continue improving. And so that's a couple different mental shifts that happen. And as you go into season, man, the biggest thing for me, I always tell people is you got to trust your work. When the season's around the corner, when you're going into season, man, the hay's in the barn, right? That's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. Like all the work at that point has been done. Obviously, you're going to continue to improve, continue to work hard throughout the course of the season. But man, when you've got the summer, you've got the fall, you've got the winter, and you go into season in February, man, the work is done. And so trusting that work is such a huge piece. Having your self-talk in a game. Some guys, it's before they, step into the box, they say, hey, I trust my work, man. Let's go. Right. Or they take a deep breath, focal point on their bat. They say, compete. Let's go. Right. That was my thing. And so I think the shift for me is, especially over a freshman year, or if you're going into college ball, is take ownership of your career. Number one, bet on yourself. And then when you get into season, man, trust that work, have routines that can help continue to build your confidence. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. As a walk on, it has to be tough because not only are you trying to, prove that you're good enough to be on the team, but also you're trying to take that next step where you're actually ending up in the lineup. And, for myself, when I ended up at Cal State Fullerton as a freshman, I had unbelievable imposter syndrome. I showed up on campus, had no clue if I belonged, tried to act like I did. uh, and, I thought every failure was kind of just life or death. I thought I would go back home after to my dorm and just after a bad scrimmage, be like, what was I doing? Like, what's wrong with me? The coaches are thinking I'm awful. How did you get to a point where not only were you confident in yourself, knowing that you belong there, but also, put yourself in position to have some opportunity and get some at bat?
I think it starts with training your mind. I really think that that's what I preach in everything I do is how can you get to a point where you truly master your mind? You wrote a book on it, and it's everything from visualization to breath work to journaling to self talk to intentions. Right? There's so many different mental performance tools out there from a sports psychology lens that you can study and you can actually practice on a daily basis that not everyone is doing. Right? And the people that are doing it, those are the elite athletes. And you see anywhere in any sport, I mean, the best of the best athletes are doing this stuff. You look at Djokovic, you look at Steph Curry, you look at LeBron James, you look at Mike Trout, whoever it is, doesn't really matter the sport. There's almost a story for every single one of those athletes with some sort of mental training that is going on. So for me, one of the biggest things was before bed, I had a journaling routine. I still do it to this day where I journal about one win from the day. No matter what, I'm writing down one thing that I can smile about, right? Whether it's on the field, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's with a friend, something that I can say, all right, that was awesome, right? And smile and think about how good that made me feel, right? If you want to write about other stuff, that's great, but that's a really, really good starting point for anyone out there that wants to get into mental training, right? Just journaling about that. Another good technique is in the morning, journaling about something you're grateful for, or saying it in your head. Hey, I'm grateful for, beautiful sunshine today, or hey, I'm grateful for my perfect health, right? Something like that. Or even just telling yourself, hey, I'm going to be energetic today, right? I'm energetic, I'm powerful, I'm strong, right? Intentions, I am statements, all of those things. I think it all added up for me to be able to really build a strong mind where every single time I drove to the field, I was ready to go, right? I blasted music, I got my mind right so that when I, exited the car door and walked onto that field, that I was feeling my best. And I knew at that point that I did everything I could to prepare to feel good so that whatever happens on the field happens on the field, right? I'm not going to focus on the result. I know that if my preparation is great, I'm giving myself the best chance to succeed. And that's all you can do at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought up journaling because I'll be honest, my freshman year, I got into it. Brian Kane worked with us at Cal State Fullerton, who's just unbelievable. And he always talks about journaling. And so I was like, yeah, I'll get into this. And I was doing it for the total wrong reasons. Like I would write down like, something I'm grateful for, a win from the day. And then I would go to practice and have a bad day of practice and be like, this journal I'm supposed to help. Like, why isn't this working? Like I thought it was, an ends to a mean rather than, this is something that like will just make me more positive. And now I journal in it, exactly what you said. It's 3 wins of the day, something I'm grateful for, and then just something to improve on going into the next day. Um, you know, I've seen so many clips of your time in Oregon, the clip against Oregon State getting on base and your hits against Portland. That was prior to my time there. But how did you put yourself into that position? Like, what was the switch that just clicked during that season, that made you go from, the guy that's, we would have cut you if this wasn't COVID to now you're in the lineup?
You'd be surprised. Some people think it's a magic pill, right? Or one thing, one switch. And to be honest, it's not. It's consistency. what am I doing on a daily basis, on a moment to moment basis? What decisions am I making to put myself in a position to actually make lasting change? Right. For me, it took a lot, right? It wasn't a one day, one workout thing and I'm, this spark plug at Oregon. No, man. Like
Mhm.
I had to grind like every single waking moment, especially going home over that winter break. My freshman year was, man, if if I don't do this, right, what's the result? I either quit baseball, I transfer, I'm not in a good headspace, right? All this laundry list of not so great things, right? If I don't, and so that kind of lit a fire underneath me to make those moment to moment decisions. And then there was also just this belief that I deserve to do this, man. I deserve to do this for myself because I know that 5, 10 years down the road, if I can look back and be like, you know what, I did everything I could. I'm not going to have any regrets and I'm going to live a really joyful, fulfilled life. But if I look back and I say, oh man, I can't believe I didn't do this, that's not going to be a great feeling, right? Nobody wants that. And so, what I would challenge, anyone who's watching this, especially any athletes out there, is man, it's a decision on a moment to moment basis to create beautiful things like you see in the highlight reels. It's not a one-time thing. It's not, "Oh, just hope it shows up on game day, just cruise through practice." Like, no, man, you gotta make practice hard. You gotta train for those moments. I train for moments like that where I get a pinch hit randomly late in the game. I trained for the moment against Ball State when it was literally bases loaded, tie ball game, bottom of the ninth, 1 out, chance to win the series. Who are we going to? Tyler, let's go. Here's your chance, right? Most guys clam up in that spot, right? And I probably would have if I was in my old, form of myself, the guy that was almost cut. But since I trained every single day to just be relentless with my mindset training, relentless in the weight room, pushing myself, not just cruising in there, right? Relentless at practice, making it as hard as I possibly can, training my breath, training my routines, all of that over time prepared me for moments like that, like you're talking about, right? Getting on the plate with 2 strikes against Oregon State, chance to sweep them for the first time in 10 years. If I'm not mentally tough, I don't get on the plate with 2 strikes. I don't get my toes over the white line if you watch the video, right? And it turned out, to be great. Hits me in the kneecap with a curveball. And who knows? Is it because I inched up on the plate? Maybe. But I'd like to think that my mindset training and all of the moment to moment decisions led to me having a great chance to have success in those types of moments.
Percent. I mean, I completely agree that it takes time though to get to that point where you really believe in yourself and respect that the work is put in and you have to believe in the work. I think there were so many times where I had put the work in, I hit extra, went to the weight room extra and did everything, but still in the back of my mind just had this little coach is going to notice this. Am I, doing these things right? Is this even going to pay off? Did you ever deal with any of that doubt? And then how did you really just get that doubt out of your mind and just focus on playing?
Absolutely. That's a great question because I think that's honestly what I've been getting the most in people reaching out to me is they do the work, right? They do the work of they're working hard in the weight room, they're working hard in the cages, and they still have this thing in the back of their head. And honestly, I had that for a while. I had this really bad habit of when I was in the cages in high school, after almost every rep, I would look up around behind the cages, see if a coach was watching for almost, I don't know if it was a subconscious validation thing, right? There's probably probably layers to it. Just not confident in myself and whatnot. But you know, when you can identify things like that and I don't know, just try to have awareness of what's going on in your head, man, a lot of things can change. I would say one of the biggest things for that is really just building routines in the dead space of the game. And so I talk about this a lot. I think pressure, I think doubt, I think imposter syndrome, a lot of these things that come up is basically just a result of your attention slipping a little bit, your attention going to something that it probably shouldn't be going to, right? Going to, what is the coach thinking of me, right? But the reality is you have the ability to rewire your brain. You have the ability to train your focus and kind of redirect where your thoughts are going, redirect where your attention is. So if you think about it like that, it's kind of like your brain's a computer program. I talk about this all the time. If you research the brain at all, you realize that your brain is just a compilation of all of your life experiences up to this point. And your job as a human being, in my opinion, is to be able to separate from your mind a little bit and realize that you are the person that controls what goes on. You're the person that controls, hey, what voice am I going to listen to in my head today? Right? Because we all have them. right? Whether you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm him, man. I'm the man," right? Or, "Oh man, there's no way. I've got no shot today," right? But it's you have a decision in the voice you choose, and how do you create awareness? How do you trust certain voices more than others? I think it's by you building routines. And so I talk about building routines in the dead space of the game. What does that mean? Well, there's a whole lot of time in baseball, right? It's a pretty slow sport in general, 3 or 4 hours usually, right, for a full game. And so what are you doing in between innings? What are you doing in the dugout? What are you doing in the hole? What are you doing on deck? What are you doing in between pitches? What are you doing after you make an error on defense? What are you doing if an umpire screws you on a call in the box and you're 0-2, but you got the bases loaded with 2 outs and you've still got a chance, right? You still got one more strike left. Are you going to spiral? Are you going to keep thinking about the past strike? Or are you going to compete in the moment, right? And so for me, it's all about breaking down, when can I, do this routine? When can I do this routine? What am I doing in this spot? When you can break that down and have a clear, rehearsed routine of, exactly what you're going to go to in those spots, that gives you a huge edge. And usually it solves the issue of, if there's that one thought in the back of your mind where you did all the work, but there's still something slipping, usually those routines can absolutely, change your thoughts completely to where you're way more confident than still kind of just hoping and thinking. And right, you got to take control of your mind a little bit.
But it took me a while to even get close to that point where it was, I would step out of the box between every pitch and it was just looking at my bat and I had the like green voodoo and it said insanity on it. And so I just said, all right, you're insane, you're him. I'd get in the box and that was it. And I didn't give myself an opportunity to think twice about it or think, oh, what's the coach going to think if I get out here or I strike out in this big moment? And that just simplified everything for me. And then also just realizing like it's not that deep. Like if I put all of this pressure onto myself right now, what do I gain from it? Because if it doesn't work out, then I bet all those negative things I think are gonna happen probably aren't. No one's gonna, tell me I'm terrible or think I'm the worst. But if I have a positive outlook going into it, then the chances of me having success is way higher. I want to get back to your time at Oregon. Kind of what led to you transferring to Northwestern, and what was your time like at Oregon?
Yeah, my time at Oregon was amazing. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Had the best experience ever. I have some of the best relationships in my life from teammates and coaches. Um, and so for me, it was all about development. I had to ask myself every single year as a walk on, hey, why am I staying at Oregon? Right? What's the point, and what's driving me, and all those types of questions. And for me, I truly believe that it was some of the best coaches in the country that were in that program. And I think I developed a ton. I think I was way better leaving that program than I was when I got there. And that was the whole goal. I really wanted to win a championship too, and I believed that the guys could do it. And we ended up doing that my junior year, my final year there. And so I did that. I accomplished getting my degree done in 3 years as well. And so those were a bunch of goals of mine that I really accomplished. And at that point, I was like, okay, I really want to start consistently. And I want to really just, stand up for myself a little bit and say, hey, where can I put myself in, the best situation to be able to start and be an everyday guy. And so that was a really hard conversation. I remember crying with the coaches because we had such a great relationship that we built, that it was so painful for me to ask, hey, basically I think I'm ready to jump ship just for this last year so I can have a slam dunk a little bit on where I'm going and knowing that I'm going to play a little bit more. And they totally understood, and they picked up the phone right away. They said, who do you want me to call? And I think that's just a testament to, not me, man. That's anyone can create something like that. The testament to the fact that relationships are the most important thing in life. It truly is. And a lot of people think about stats and rankings and transfer immediately and all these things. And it's like, man, I would just say, think twice before you think impulsively, right? Really think to yourself, hey, maybe why am I not playing? What's my end goal here? Yeah, maybe I want to play pro, but if I stick around, what's the good that comes out of that, right? What's the bad? Maybe make your pros and cons, but that was really the reason for transferring, and ended up going to Northwestern, where I had another unbelievable experience. Was really lucky to have my first Division I scholarship. That was another big goal of mine. Train for the full year. I'm fired up. I'm leading off. Our first game against Tulane, our first series, I crush it. I'm hitting like 455 or something ridiculous, and all of a sudden I break my hand. Brutal. Hamate bone snaps in the middle of a game when we're at home, and season-ending injury. Right, that was another moment that I want to touch on real quick because it really informed a lot. That's actually when I've officially formalized my company, Collegiate Mind Mastery, because I had to deal with some mental hurdles. I was at a point there where I had to make a decision on how I viewed that injury. Right, I was sitting at home after surgery, watching the live stream of my boys at Penn State, and I was crushed, man. I didn't know how to think or what to do, and so I chose to look at that as an opportunity to get bigger, faster, stronger for a whole nother year. And how exciting that was for me to think about because I knew I was going to be so much better, and that was going to lead to more success on the field, more really cool moments. And so that's what drove me every day was just the opportunity and the blessing of time, to be honest with you, instead of looking at the time off, so to speak, as recovering and just brutal, right? And painful. Instead, hey, this is a challenge. This is an opportunity. This is a great chance for growth in so many different aspects, physically, mentally, everything. And guess what? I can maybe journal about some of this stuff and hopefully pass it down to the next generation, right? And so those were my thoughts. And it really started from again a decision to step back for a second and say, wow, these negative thoughts are not serving me, right? These negative thoughts are not going to do anything for me. Like, I want to live a happy life. What am I doing? Right. And so, yes, we're human beings. We're going to have emotions all the time. But I don't know. One hopeful takeaway for you guys, or one thing that I hope you take away is, you just always have a decision in those moments. When it's really hard, like lean into it, man. It's not always going to be smooth. And sometimes when you lean into the uncomfortable reps and the uncomfortable times, there's always something to learn and there's something good that's going to come out of it.
Yeah, I absolutely just love Scott Poltig. Everything you said right there. One thing that really helped me, when I was playing, even just in life in general, was just, going in with the mindset is a negative outlook's going to lead to a negative outcome, and a positive outlook is going to lead to a positive outcome. And so, just any little thing that happened to me, I just found a way. All right, if I have a positive outlook, something's going to, become positive out of this. And I don't know what it is, but if I look at it negatively, how am I going to expect myself to have any success? Let's say it was me hitting, for example, me telling myself I'm terrible in the middle of BP. The result isn't going to be a home run the next pitch. Like, that's not how it works. But if I keep believing in myself somehow, then, at some point it's going to click because my mind is there. My mind's thinking positively. Now I just need my body to translate. I want to hear just your thoughts on, how you do have a choice, in every single thing that happens to you in life, you have a choice on how you're going to respond to it, what your perspective is going to be. How do you handle that choice?
Whew, that's a loaded question. I would say it's something trained. It's something that you train on a daily basis. It starts with one decision. You know, if you're watching this and you feel like you haven't really had control or you haven't had complete awareness of what's going on, just pause for a second and ask yourself, "Hey, what thought am I about to have?" And wait for a second and just see what comes up. You'll be surprised. You probably won't think of anything in a second, and all of a sudden, a thought comes up, and you're like, "Oh, dang! Wait, that's kind of cool. I have some awareness of what's going on in my head. Okay, wait." If I can control what's going on in here, man, maybe I can control how I'm feeling on a moment to moment basis a little bit, right? Which is the truth. And so I would just say like it starts with one decision. And when you make a decision to just start training what's going on in your head, like everything changes. You don't have to overhaul and do a million things like an hour visualization, and 10 minutes of breathing, right? You don't need to add in all this stuff right now, but how do you make the decisions? And I mean, how do you train your mind? You just start doing it. It's as simple as that. You take action. And so, um, yeah, I try to just monitor my thoughts as much as I can, and journaling has really helped that. Visualization, just kind of sitting in stillness, um, taking walks in nature, right? Like you'd be surprised. There's a lot of different ways to connect with just like what's going on inside of you. But when you really have some time alone, I think that's super valuable, man. Just to like explore what's going on in my head. You'd be surprised. You can learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So you go through that injury and, how did you come back from it? And what was your thought process when you did finally make it back?
Man, I was in a great spot because I had thought every single day, how good was it going to feel when I get back on the field, and that's all I thought about for a year basically, right? Was that next opportunity to get onto a field, and honestly, it actually came that summer after I rehabbed for a few months. I was playing up in Vermont, and I had the best best summer ball, best 2-month stretch of my life. I think I hit like 400. It was ridiculous over like 25, 30 games. And it was because I prepped for that moment. It wasn't because, some magical thing happened. I really believe that. Like same swing, same everything. I just decided, for a few months to really lean into it. How can I just be the most confident version of myself? And when I felt myself slipping, I wasn't going to judge myself for not being confident, but I was going to say, hey, tomorrow, man, nah, it's not going to be that guy. Like, never going to go 2 days in a row of whatever that guy was, right? Having some of those moments, and so it stacks up, and um, I ended up having a good year. And I'll go into a funny story because everyone thinks growth is kind of like this straight line, and it's not. It's ups and downs, right? Hopefully trending in an upward direction. But man, there's so many ups and downs throughout your life. And like for me, I was obsessed over the goal of going pro, right? And getting drafted, getting signed, and end up having a good year at 280 with 3 pumps in the Big Ten. That's pretty average for a corner outfielder and first baseman ish. And there's a lot of talented guys, man. Didn't get popped, and it was tough, man. I was like, dang, is it over basically? And I ended up actually getting a tryout for banana ball. Super interesting summer where I trained for, geez, probably 4 or 5 months, backflips, trick plays, everything, like everything under the sun, and ended up going to the tryout, doing pretty well actually, but getting rejected. And once again, it felt like, back to back rejections basically in the time frame of 4 or 5 months, which was really hard on me mentally, and so much to a point where I said, I think I'm done with baseball. I'm just going to lean into business, and that's it. And so I stepped away from the game for 3 or 4 months, and I thought I was done, and I was kind of at peace. I was doing so much mental work, man. I really dove deep on my mindset and learned so much about myself. And out of the blue, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I get a call from the Ogden Raptors, an indie ball team, professional team out of Utah, saying, "Hey, we know your story. We've done a lot of research. We'd like to have you on the team this year. You want to come and play?" And I was like, "Oh man, oh man, what is going on right now?" And I ended up deciding to go, and so I'm moving. Actually, I'm moving next week to Utah. We report in a couple months, and what a ride, man! What a ride! And so, the biggest thing that I've learned throughout this entire thing, I mean, especially in the past few months, is, man, when you don't attach to something so tightly where you're obsessing over it like I did with pro ball, and you really just kind of release it out into the universe a little bit, and you have time to just like work on yourself, the craziest things can happen. You know, Opportunity like this out of thin air. They literally DM me on TikTok. To be honest with you, the president, out of everything, right? He's like, "Hey, hop on a call." I'm like, "Okay." Um, so anyway, you never know what can happen. But I think the coolest thing is as I come back into baseball, I don't really care how long it lasts, to be honest with you. I have a completely different approach. Talk about a mindset shift, man. I'm literally just going back for the love of the game. If I hit 300, great. If I hit 150, great. I really am not attached to the results because I realized that when I started playing the game, man, I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah, I was pretty good. That drove me, but no, man, it was because I loved competing. I loved being with my teammates, right? Having a good time, like hammering, barreling up some ball. Like the 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 most important thing, I think, is to just always ask yourself, like, why you love the game. Like, why did you start playing to begin with? Because that will get you out of so many dark holes, man. It really will. If you're losing love for the game, that'll bring you right back. If you're struggling to make a mechanical fix right in the cages, that'll bring you back. Like your why and just why you started playing, I think is critical. So anyway, that's my framework going forward of how I'm viewing this summer. It's almost market research for me to be able to learn as much as I can about myself so I can pass that on to the next generation. So that's how I'm helping my mind be able to detach from the result and really just enjoy the process, enjoy the moment of living out a dream.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, first off, congrats.
Thank you.
That's super sick. I mean, that just doesn't, happen out of, thin air. And obviously, it's very much earned, after the performance, obviously, that you've had on the field, but then just, I mean, you probably wouldn't be there if you didn't have kind of the mindset that you have right now. And you touched on a big point. It's just, kind of letting loose of the results. Because I think for so often, for so many athletes, including myself, is, you're thought about yourself is based on the results. I remember I would having, 0 for 3, 0 for 4 a day. And I thought I was a bad person. Like I was upset with myself. rather than, realize like, okay, it's just a game. Also, if I dwell on these results so much and this is the only reason I'm doing it, what fun is that? Like, even when I do have success, there were times where I was like, is this really that enjoyable if I have to, hit well in order for me to be happy? And so I am curious if you want to touch a little bit more on just, your thought process of, not being so result driven, but, more process driven.
Absolutely. I think for a hitter, if there's any hitters watching, I think one of the biggest things that I started to implement that helped was after every at bat, I would ask myself a few questions. Was I on time? Did I get a good pitch to hit? And was I mentally locked in, or did I commit to my approach? And those three questions changed everything, man, because that is all about what you can control, right? Everyone always talks, oh, control what you can control. I don't love that phrase because usually people don't go deeper than that, right? They don't actually tell you what that means, right? And so for me, what that means is, okay, if I hit a screaming line drive right at the shortstop and he catches it, was that a bad at bat? That's a debate I have with so many people,
Obviously.
right?
No, obviously not.
I agreed. I totally agree. And that's because you can't control whether he catches the ball or not, right? Whether it rips his glove off or whether he catches it immediately, right? You can't control that. What you can't control is how the ball got there, right? And so for me, as long as you're saying, okay, was I mentally there, right? Am I sticking to my approach of what I'm trying to do here? Am I on time, right? Those are things that you can control. And so instead of judging yourself off of, hey, did I go 4 for 4, 0 for 4 today? Oh, that determines good or bad day. Like, no, man. Did you have good at bats? Did you control what you can control? And guess what? If you didn't control what you can control, great. It's feedback for tomorrow. Let's go be better tomorrow. Right? That's the mindset it's gotta be. It's gotta be like, in my opinion, an obsession over learning more than anything. Right. I play the game to learn. That's my new thing, man. Truly. I play the game to learn about myself, about life, about other people, about everything, right? When you frame it like that, it's so much more enjoyable, right? Obviously, we all want success, but to be honest, you can't control completely your average. You can't. If you see a screaming line drive at the shortstop 10 times in a row, guess what? You might be hitting zero. But you can't really control it. And so I think detaching from the result really is everything. I'm glad you touched on that and asked me that, because it's it's really hard to wrap your head around it. But once you do, it's so freeing.
Yeah. And I feel like so many, athletes, I coached high school baseball last spring, and so many of them were just their confidence was based off of good results. So like there would be days where they would, have 3 barrels in a row, all of them caught, and they would show up the next day, with their head down a little, did something great. Even if, let's say you were 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, you can't let your confidence just be based strictly off the result, because otherwise you're never going to have any success because you're never going to be confident because you aren't getting hits. And so it's almost like you said, going back to, the work you put in, even when things aren't going great, just believing that something positive is going to come out of it. I want to hear your thoughts, getting into just the mindset mastery. What are some things that you're seeing a lot of young athletes really struggle with, with the mental game these days?
Absolutely. I've been getting a lot of messages the past couple of weeks. One of the biggest things has been fear of failure. Fear of failure, overthinking is probably a close second. Just self doubt in general, and then a loss of love for the game. Those are the top four or so that I've been getting. Um, and I've been directing a lot of that to routines, really. More than anything, a lot of these young athletes don't really have solid routines. Like I said, in those dead spaces of the game, like what are they doing to take control of their mind? Right? Is their mind controlling them, or are they controlling their mind? Right? That's the truth of it. Is you're doing one or the other, and so just flipping some of their perspectives on that. Um, has kind of been the biggest thing. And then obviously teaching people about different mental tools, right? How to visualize. A lot of people don't really even know what that means, right? That's basically picturing something in your head, walking yourself through a scene, right? Closing your eyes, getting relaxed, taking some deep breaths, and walking yourself through, having a highlight moment, right? Or maybe going through some adversity and then how you bounce back, right? But rehearsing in your head what's going on. And what's so cool about your mind is your brain doesn't know the difference between a lived experience and an imagined one. And so you can kind of hack your mind. Sometimes I'll be closing my eyes thinking about, an at bat late in the game, and my palms will literally get sweaty because it's a physical reaction. My brain doesn't know whether I'm in the box right now or, you know, in my living room, closing my eyes and,
Yeah.
and going through it. And so, a lot of stuff on that and sensory immersion. And basically what that means is how real can you make that moment? Because the more real you can make it, the more your brain believes it. So include all of your senses, the taste, the sounds, the sights, the smells, right? Everything. And so visualization is a big one that I teach. Breath work, right? Not just one deep breath, but actually understanding there's different frequencies, different cadences that you can dive into, that can help you, ramp up your heart rate a little bit or slow it down. And so breath work is another great tool. And then self-talk obviously is huge. Talking about I am statements, why I am is important. Man, I am is so powerful, starting a phrase with that, because your brain focuses on it a little bit more because it's kind of attached to your identity. When you say I am powerful, I am confident, I am strong, your brain's going to believe that more than you just saying, let's have some power today, or here we go, right? Like sometimes there's certain phrases you can tell yourself that are really powerful. They usually start with I am, or maybe it's something like compete. For me, that was, our team motto my freshman year at Oregon. I have a very, vivid memory of what that word kind of entailed for our team. And so I use compete, right? Or I use I'm the man, right? Or whatever it is. And so that's an example of self-talk. And obviously we touched on journaling a bunch, but yeah, those are definitely the top few that I've dealt with and how we deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. And I think those are all so great, especially when you touched on kind of the fear of failure. Because I can talk for myself because there were plenty of times where I think I feared failure, but even more I feared judgment. I feared, what are people gonna think of me if I strike out in this situation? Or, I feared, if I don't travel this weekend, what are my friends gonna think, back home or, my family and things like that. How do we kind of get over, or what do you teach to get over that fear of failure and just that fear of judgment from others?
Man, number one is I normalize it because I think it's gone through every single teenage mind in all of history of humankind, right? That's number one. And then really, I say this a lot, not even athletically related, but everyone's kind of worried about themselves. To be honest with you, if you really think about it,
That's I've learned that's like I go over that every single day now, where I'm just like, no, everyone is so caught up in their own stuff. I
100%. Like it's not really a formalized, professional maybe way to say it, but it's the truth, right? And when you can really think about that, like, oh wow, like all day I'm thinking about what other people think and how my life, like everyone has their center, like they're the center of their universe a little bit, right? And so that usually alleviates a little bit of pressure, but again, it's really just taking people back to when they felt their most confident self. That's a really, really good tactic that, I'll use with guys or girls or whoever. Is together we'll just be like, let's think about when was your best game of your life, right? What did that feel like? What led up to that moment? What did you do pregame? What did you do during the game? What was going through your head? How did you feel after the game, right? And sometimes when you can tap into that, you realize, oh wow, confidence is an interesting thing. Like I can kind of forget about the good things I've done. And if I'm so attached to the 0 for 3 last game, guess what? I don't even remember that I'm a good player. I don't even remember I hit a home run last week, right? It's the truth. And so it's a funny thing, but I think if you can kind of remind yourself as much as you possibly can of your previous accomplishments of when you've actually done it, man, that's a huge win right there. I mean, I talk all the time about highlight reels. I'm a huge believer in watching your tape, like watching your highlights as much as you can. Even closing your eyes and visualizing past moments. Like I'll do that all the time of my walk off against Ball State. That's one of my highlights of my career. I will close my eyes if I'm feeling like crap, right? I'll close my eyes and relive that moment and try to literally feel the Gatorade bath on me, feel the guys yelling in my ear, let's go, right? Like all these things. And so anyway, that's kind of how I've been able to tackle it with some athletes, and they found it really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Tyler, I appreciate you. And every conversation with the same question. If you could go back and give your younger self just one piece of advice, let's say freshman year at Oregon, as soon as you step on campus, you can give that younger self of Tyler some advice, what would it be?
Man, I would say you got to bet on you. No one else is going to do it for you. You got to be your number one fan, and you got to talk to yourself like your best friend. That's something I tell a lot of athletes I work with. And what I mean by that is if your friend was struggling with something, your best friend, how would you talk to them? Probably pretty uplifting, right? Saying, hey, you're gonna be all right, man. Hey, you're all right, dude. You've done it before. Why don't you just talk to yourself like that? Right. And I'll leave it open ended at that. I won't even elaborate too much because I think it's a really good thought to just sit with and see what you come up with.
Yeah, I love that. It's similar to, treat yourself in a third person point of view. So you talk to someone else, how you talk to yourself. Sometimes when it's so negative, they probably punch you in the face. So yeah, treat yourself how you treat your best friend. I absolutely love that. Tyler, I appreciate you uh, coming on and for you this upcoming summer, and looking forward to see all the content that you put out.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you again to Tyler for sharing his journey and insight into the mental side of the game. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who would find it valuable. Thanks for tuning in, and keep moving forward. Until next time.